Hello, welcome to i-tutor Academy. In today's session, we will start with the Unit 14, subsection 6, that is Hall's cultural model. In last video, we just half the day's cultural model we just finished. So Edward T. Hall is known for his contribution to the understanding of cultures. He coined the term intercultural communication and suggested that in different cultures, individuals use different means to communicate, which may range from using just words to using body language, touch behavior, and also paraverbal communication. He has classified the analysis and interpretation of how communication and interaction take place between cultures under three categories: context, space, and time. So, what is context? The context refers to how a message is communicated. In a high context culture, the most important part of the message is the physical context. This means that the message is expected to be interpreted in the same context in which it is crafted. Space. Hall refers to space as study of physical space and the people, which is termed technically as proxemics. It refers to the distance between the people who are communicating. Time. Culture also differ on the basis of how they handle time. In polychronic cultures, individuals indulge into multiple activities at the same time, whereas in monochronic culture, people tended to do one task at a time. European and American of monochronic culture keep the scheduled time. All business meetings commence and end at the scheduled time. They strictly follow time even in informal settings. And table 1 represent a comparison among four different cultures on the basis of their business network and relationship culture. New Zealand, South Africa, and egalitarian culture where everyone is seen as equal. Communication strategies are not power centric. Contrary to this are India, China, where the relationships are power centric, and while handling business communication should be designed to route as per the flow of power. So here is strategies: uniqueness, replaceability, interdependence, disclosure, intrinsic reward, monochronic versus polychronic. So please refer table 1, comparison of four cultural across developing business network and relationship. So New Zealand, China, India, and South Africa. So strategy is also here. So you just refer this table 1. And next is cross-cultural communication barriers. Observation and interpretation are distinct when viewed in reference to cross-cultural communication. Barriers in cross-cultural communication can be classified under five heads as by half the days, that is language barrier, non-verbal communication, stereotype, cultural bias, anxiety. Language barriers: the knowledge of language is way more than just vocabulary and grammar. Your competence in language extends to acquiring the ability to know what needs to be said, when it needs to be said, how to frame it, and why or why not to say it. And non-verbal communication: the non-verbal communication forms an inevitable co-partner of verbal communication. This includes gestures, posture, and demur, which elevate the language and sometimes replaces words. This unspoken language has become so much a part of us that we use it not just frequently but also habitually. During cross-cultural communication, it is best to observe nonverbal communication that is prevalent. One should be aware of those gestures or postures that may be natural to them but may be considered offensive in the other cultures. Stereotyping is preconceiving interpretations about people belonging to certain cultures. For example, if we assume that citizens of one country are aggressive and unfriendly, we will interpret all their verbal and non-verbal communication that way only. In order to remove this from the stereotyping, take the individual on his or her face value and judge them as an individual and not just as representative of one culture. Cultural bias: this deals with the predisposition to assess behavior of individuals belonging to other cultures. There could be propensity to assess behavior as good or bad. Cultural bias is an integral barrier of cross cultural communication. We tended to compare among us cultures, primarily our own culture. The ideal thing to do in such a situation is to remove all preconceived notions and become aware of the other cultures. Anxiety. While communicating with the individual of another culture, most people experience anxiety. The unfamiliar experience causes stress. This anxiety and stress mount further in case the knowledge of the other culture is minimal. Next is overcoming cross cultural communication barriers. Cross cultural communication stands as a process which not only identifies and addresses differences but also similarities among us cultural groups so as to effectively engage with a given context. It is more about adjustments that individual belonging to different cultural backgrounds make in order to improve interpersonal and intergroup communication. In order to collectively reduce all barriers to cross cultural communication, it is best to be more patient and tolerant during all steps of communication. Flexibility in thought and action are the prerequisite for success today. The same applies to communication, wherein ability and willingness to adapt is an opportunity to master cross cultural communication. Cultural differences are, on many occasions, complex and create anxiety amongst individuals belonging to different culture. Acceptance is the first step, followed by flexibility to adapt without the fear to lose your identity. Most of the cross cultural differences can be classified as language. The speed of language differs across different cultures. Indians tended to speak English faster since they are used to speaking their native languages at a good speed. People lay emphasis on different places in a sentence, thus hinting towards where the importance need to be put. It could lay on important words or at the end of the sentence. The emphasis and hence the focus will have to adjust according to the language. This variation of focus also comes due to intonation and volume. Stronger intonation indicate intensified emotions, while louder voice are linked to dominance and arrogance. Written communication. The formality involved in written communication changes from culture to culture. Latin and Asian culture are very formal in their communication, contrary to their counterpart in the UK and USA, who believe in brief and efficient communication. Listening. Both passive and active listening skill add extensive value to effective communication. This process assists in decoding messages and interpreting what is being said. The process involves receiving the message, interpreting it using a frame of in reference, remembering or storing the message, evaluating the accuracy of the content, and finally responding using verbal and non-verbal responses. Nonverbal communication. This communication goes beyond words, sometimes completing and sometimes replacing verbal communication. Nonverbal communication contribute a major portion of the message. It can take the form of gestures, facial expressions, posture, appearance, touch, distance, paralinguistic, color, or order. Gestures offer a richness to communication in several cultures. Japan and China are two countries where gestures are largely restrained and not used freely. Body language also required to be understood with its norms. In order to interpret body language correctly, one should understand the postures, gestures, comments, or situation. The famous wobbling of the head in India has different meaning depending upon the situation in which it is performed. It could sometimes mean no, while at the time it is an act of affirmation to the speaker. The direction of wobble could sometimes be teasing and sometimes authoritative. One need to match it with the situation, movement of eyes, and sometimes movement of hands to understand the accurate meaning of the message. And touch behavior and facial expression vary from culture to culture. So does paraverbal communication, like voice, volume, the use of silence, and conversation overlap. Touching each other most often indicate a personal relationship. People embrace each other during meeting in Russia, whereas Britishers prefer to avoid touching except handshakes. Figure 1 represent the strategies which one can follow to overcome cross cultural communication. Figure 1, strategies to overcome barriers of cross cultural communication. So there is, don't be judgmental, control your own bias, be flexible, adapt language of the foreign culture, emphasizing relationship, seek help from interpreters or local acquaintance. So like that, you just refer this figure 1. It is often noticed that the cause of communication problem or misunderstanding which could lead to conflict occur due to cultural differences amongst individuals. Hofstadter suggests that in order to overcome these cross-cultural communication barriers, it is the best suited to interpret the conversation only after deep dividing into the other culture. More than half the battle in building rapport across very different cultures is understanding. Observation must precede and interpretation and attribution. The largest challenge are faced by business who, as a product of globalization, have to operate in multiple countries. So activity 2 is here. So you just try to do it. And lean media, rich media, and social media. All of you know what is social media. All of you using your WhatsApp, Instagram, Facebook. All of these are social medias. Media has taken various forms, thus providing different forms of communication. Lean media is media that is generally asynchronous in nature and the sacrifices the possibility of immediate feedback and possibility of social cues during communication. Lack of visual cues or limited verbal cues could cause ambiguity in interpretation, and with no chance to counter check the content may lead to misunderstanding. Most popular examples of lean media include text message, email, bulletin board, etc. While choosing the most effective channel for enhancing the effectiveness of a message, one must analyze the nature of the information that is required to be communicated. Media richness is the indicator of the impact of information on understanding within a defined time interval. Richness related to the level of learning the communication offer. Face to face telephonic live chat sessions are media rich and compared to email. Media richness theory relate to giving managers and aid to increase effectiveness of communication. Richness of message can be evaluated using parameters like capacity to include personal focus and immediate feedback, language used, multiple hints, etc. Message embedded with the unclear information with the multiple interpretation should use rich media like face-to-face or telephonic communication. Information meant to communicate only pure fact can be conveyed using media which are low in richness like business letters, text messages, etc. So there is figure 2 depict certain characteristics of media. High, low characteristics of media that determines richness of information processed. Medium, feedback, channel, sources, language is there. Social media uses multiple online performance. It helps in sharing and collaborating information online. Communication on this platform is crucial since organization while communicating with the other stakeholders build in a virtual image and equity. Today, the younger population procures most of their information through these social media platforms. The action and reaction have been loud since information at a time is unfiltered. There is a sense of urgency for receiving responses. Social media has also created a pressure to share something. And that is about social media. Summary is here in this chapter. Culture. So we started with the culture is the inherent core value of a society promulgated through social interaction and teachings. It is acquired and collective. It has a value system and is largely stable. It operates as a differentiator between members belonging to different cultures, and it changes with the context. And some societies have similar cultures, but a few are significant different from others. The theories of culture suggest three contexts under which culture can be viewed as functionalist view, conflict view, and symbolic view. Hofstede's cultural dimension model suggests that cultures could be classified on the basis of power distance index, individualism versus collectivism, masculinity versus femininity, uncertainty, avoidance index, long versus short term orientation, and intelligence versus restraint. Edward T. Hall has classified the analysis and interpretation of how communication and interaction between cultures under three categories: context, space, and time. Communication gets significantly impacted due to difference in cultures, and these cross cultural barriers could be due to the language spoken, non-verbal communication, stereotypes, cultural bias, or anxiety. Awareness, acceptance, and adjustment are the key to overcoming barriers of cross cultural behavior. In order to excel cross cultural behavior, caution attention should be placed on language, written communication, listening, and nonverbal communication, which include body language, touch behavior, eye contact, gestures, and space. And lean media, we already discussed rich media and social media. Okay, so however this can lead to spread of fake information and at that time of showers. So keyword section is here, you just try to go through it, and the self assessment questions also, it will help you for your term and examination like your assignment. So only 5 questions, try to do it. Evaluate the culture of the United States of America on the basis of Hofstede's cultural dimension. Assess two way in which the verbal language and body language may differ between different cultures. Compare Eastern and Western culture on at least 5 parameters as proposed by Hofstede and Hall. Explain the possible barriers that could occur during cross-cultural communication, and awareness, acceptance, and adjustment are the key to overcoming cross-cultural communication. So these are the 5 questions. Try to do it. In between any doubts, you can contact us. So that's about today's session. Thank you so much. For more MBA videos, you just do like, share, and subscribe our channel.
i-tutor Academy presents IGNOU MBA complete syllabus coverage classes for individual students, semester-wise subject with online and flexible timing. For more details, contact on +916 238 21785.